didn't look good last time.
It didn't?
No. I looked at the video. It was kind of poop. I was looking into Chroma Keying it this time too, but I was just like, it didn't really look that good, to be honest. We may have to figure out audio though again. So
what's the gain at?
We're gonna check that real quick. I think it might have been messed up from before when we set up for the tournament. Hey guys, can you hear us fine, by the way? We're just trying to make sure on chat real quick. Damn. Scott drops his phone. All right, perfect. Great. We're perfect, dude.
Okay.
All right, guys. Thanks for stopping by. This is going to be the third developer Q&A that we've done. Again, we're going to be doing these bi-weekly, so not next Friday, but the Friday after that. Going to be the same week of the patches for now, so you get kind of the new stuff and you can ask questions, send it around there.
Cool.
We'll just jump straight into it. So these questions are pulled from the Discord. After we get through these, you guys are more than welcome to ask questions in chat, and we will get to what we can within this hour time slot.
Yeah, I do got to roll out a little bit earlier though. I got to get out. I got to be done by like 3:50.
Okay.
To make a meeting.
So we gotta go. We gotta go fast. First up is Dashiel Rogue. Will the missing gods from the pantheons that are already live or coming soon? Anyways, any spoils about it? Basically, are there going to be gods that we're missing from the pantheons we have currently that we're
Yeah,
bringing in?
absolutely, 100%. So right after we release the Hindu pantheon, we are not going to rush to get the Japanese pantheon out anytime soon. Instead, we're going to kind of reprioritize and focus on fleshing out all of the existing pantheons. I mean, there's still a lot of times where I always think like, oh yeah, we got Tyr in the game, and we don't have Tyr in the game, right? We don't have Fafnir in the game. We don't have Chiron, right? There's still a lot of these gods that we just haven't added yet. Bacchus is another perfect example of a god who would be a lot of fun, especially when you think about all the different things you can do with him, especially inside the Roman pantheon. So we're totally looking at doing that. It's going to be right after Hindu, though.
Up next is Twisted. He mentioned that crossplay might be difficult because of how games get patched on consoles. If this is the case and crossplay does not happen, how far behind will the console versions of the game be? One patch behind like Smite or much further?
We will most likely patch at around the same cadence that Smite does, so we should only be about a week behind, but you know, best case scenario, right? Every single game inside of the studio, we always try to just get a little bit better, so we might be able to shorten that gap. Right now, it's looking like a week though.
Okay. He also asked, when it comes to single target spells or abilities, what sort of process is done to decide what they can hit? For example, Demon Bag and Crescent Blade.
A lot of that is kind of dependent on what we really need after we evaluate each of the different pantheons. So the first thing that we always do when we're looking at a spell is we go, okay, what pantheon needs it? Who's not doing well? Who needs an answer to something? So for example, like Zhang Kui, when we created him, the whole idea, we knew immediately that we wanted to do something with the Demon Bag and with the spell. And as soon as we put it all together, where it was like a war cry and the spell goes into your hand, I was like, well, it makes sense that when units die, it just strengthens this card up. And so in order to kind of reward the player for playing into that specific theme, we allowed that one to hit face. Now, when you look at other things along the lines of like Magma Slam versus Gift of Moonin, right? Those 2 3-drops, right? Magma Slam is, you know, for a lot of people, they were like, oh, okay, well, it's just strictly worse than Gift of Moonin. And that was really more on our side because we created Gift of Moonin and there was no potential downside and it could still hit face. So you were getting a draw card at best scenario, and then in addition to that, you could also hit face. So we just realized that one's a little overtuned. So normally it's like a little bit of a give and take, but most of the time we kind of determine what the Pantheon needs first.
Okay. Final question from Twisted is, when it comes to designing minions, do you take a blank minion with the stat line you want, such as Doomspeaker, before then adding the effect, adjusting the cost afterwards, or do you know what mana cost cards are going to be, and then base the stat lines around that?
So we've handled this differently every single time, but the one method that Austin and I have really been liking the most recently is, normally what we try to do is all of our minions in our game, most of the time are gonna have a passive just because, you know, our units are very high fidelity, they're super high quality, the works, right? And there's a lot of effort that goes into bringing them into a patch, so we try to make sure that they're always worth it. So what we do now is we actually start by saying, okay, is this a god? If it is a god, what pantheon it's in? And then we go, okay, so let's just go down a process of like Chiron, for example, even though he's not on there. What we would do with Chiron is we would say, okay, Chiron is Greek. What does the Greek pantheon need? We would then sort by all of their cards inside of the pantheon, and we would say, okay, where's their mana curve? Where are they hurting? What can't they do right now? What are they struggling with, right? We try to take a holistic approach to it, and we go, maybe they just don't have a good 4-drop, right? Maybe the issue right now is that they actually can't get to the point where they just overwhelm their opponent inside the board. So then we would start looking at, okay, well, maybe he's a 4-drop, but let's just kind of look at and brainstorm a couple different abilities, right? So the first thing is we'd say, okay, well, we always throw up kind of like the boring ones, quote unquote, that are just not new or unique. There's no new tech. It's kind of like, whether it's immunes or does not receive return damage or guard, right?
Effects we already have in the game.
Effects that already, like very base level. All of the base effects. And we throw it on there and we say, well, a 4-mana guard would actually be kind of cool for Chiron. That would be sweet. And then we go, okay, well, would they really benefit from that? And then we kind of just start brainstorming all of the different ideas inside of there. And there's always one super crazy idea where the card would end up being like a legendary. We always try to make sure that we're trying to get one epic, one rare, and one common/free designs inside of the brainstorm right then and there. And then we kind of just pick the ones that we felt most confident in. And then we test them.
Obviously, you could make every card with a legendary effect, but it is kind of what does the Pantheon actually need when you go around doing that? Like, what spots are they missing that these characters could fill?
And mostly that's because the entire time we're patching every 2 weeks. So the meta is always changing. The balance is always kind of going back and forth. And so with that, since we're releasing these cards in the middle of them, we have a lot of time to say, okay, what would be really good here is if Chiron, when he came down there, you actually just dealt damage to everyone on the same row as him.
Oh, okay.
So it's not, you just said an example, right? You could say that
I'm ready for that card already.
They need a board clear, right? They're like but we want to incentivize a row. So when he comes in, he just deals damage to the whole row. Something along those lines.
Okay. 5 large fries. Double-barreled question. Seeing the support of esports for the PC version, do you plan on any tournaments for the console version?
Mostly that's TBD. It's always kind of to be determined, but I imagine if you look at all of our other high-res games, we always support console and we support PC. I can't imagine it's different.
Here's the thing about our game too is that obviously controller's going to be a little bit slower than a mouse, but like a player for any LAN events we do, like a player could come and bring a controller and play. It may take them a little bit longer, and it's also really not like the mechanical skill base that you need of like Smite and Paladin. So
exactly.
Like, they could use a mouse and keyboard.
It's the same game.
Be fine.
Yeah, it's the exact same game. Twisted plays in live right now with it. So
Wanos asks, what's the point of having different maps if they're all the same? No obstacle or differentiators.
It's a very interesting point. So really, early on, we had the obstacles and we had different kind of ideas behind each of the maps. But when we kind of got into it, mostly for us, it just gives you something new to be in, right? If you were playing the same thing every single time, no questions asked, you would get really tired of the game, right? You would just be like, okay, here's the Greek map. I get it.
That's it.
These blades of grass just kind of move. It's really mostly just a scenery change. In the future, we're looking at adding like different ways that maybe there's interaction on the board, or there's something fun you can do, or there's just something that happens. Like I've pitched that Denton pops around different buildings on every single map multiple times, but it just hasn't happened. So
that's like in the future stuff.
Yeah, it's all in the future stuff. But for the most part, it's really just a change of pace.
Okay. Beals asks a few questions as well. You spoke of Greece getting some love in an upcoming patch. Any details available at this time? Were you guys happy with the overall changes you made and the results in Norse? Okay, so he's got a lot of questions this one.
Okay, well, I guess we can...
Let's go the first one, right? You spoke of Greece. Any details on any new updates and love for them?
So the Greek Pantheon, a lot of the issues that people have been having is that they just don't feel that the lower cost mana spells are worth it, right?
Yeah.
And some of them I agree with, some of them I completely disagree with, right? But we're kind of taking a approach to this and saying, what would they actually want at this mana cost that would be worthwhile? So I sent out a list to both Adanas and Austin and myself as well, and I said, here's the cards we should prioritize looking to change. Here's some other ones that if we would like to change, it's fine. But let's just make sure that these cards we knock out of the park. So that's the first thing with Greek. It might be next patch. It might be a future patch down the road. We're not really sure when it's going to be. But, we're taking a very big look at Greek, and we're trying to make sure that, we don't want to give Greek a lot of direct damage, and specifically what I mean by that is they don't need a 4 damage Magma Slam equivalent, right? They don't need anything that hits face. We want to incentivize them ramping their gods up and getting into the later stages of the game where they can't just be dealt with. So whatever can get them to that point, that's what we're looking at trying to add.
Yeah, and I know gods and interaction with gods are kind of the theme of that Pantheon.
Yeah.
Were you guys happy with the overall changes you made and the results in Norse? So obviously they took a bunch of direct damage hits. Was it this past
It was last patch.
Yeah, it was last patch. And
it's interesting.
Which structures are there?
Well, specifically with the Norse. So it's interesting, right? A part of me, I have Nordic heritage. I really, really love just the Norse Pantheon as a whole. I love all the gods. So a part of me, it kind of hurt. Just like the fanboy standpoint, it kind of hurt to have to make those changes, but I think the Pantheon got into a better spot. I think the one thing that I do want to keep my eye on that I'm a little bit worried about is if Norse Agro can actually get there. If they can finish the game. There's a lot of times where, obviously I've been seeing a lot of success recently with the deck that I'm currently running, but mostly it kind of leverages Carrier Behemoth inside of it, right? So that seems more of like a pivotal card to where you kind of include it into your deck and you can kind of just run face with it inside the Norse Pantheon, and that's helped a lot. But just because it's a bigger body that people waste resources on, and it changes the way they play. But for the most part, I'm really just trying to keep my eye on how Thor feels and then how Freya feels, because I think those two kind of took the 2 biggest hits. And then there's always this lingering thought in my head that maybe Loki isn't there. Right?
Loki's in a real
but I don't
interesting
know.
spot.
He's in a super interesting spot.
It's it feels like small touches to him would make him become an auto include, which is always dangerous.
I think the one thing that I have considered recently, and I would like to get your guys' opinions just as a whole, is we aggressively nerfed Haste and Fatalis back in the day, which is a card that really you might see some uses for it depending on if you're trying to do the OTK, but now with more health and more units,
it's a lot of OTK style.
There's not really a way for Loki to do it. I mean, right now he would do what? It's 12 damage, right? If you did it.
And then you can have Scion or Enrage buffs.
You could. So, I don't know. I'm kind of looking at Haste and Fatalis right now as one of those cards where I'm not sure if it's good at the mana cost.
And then his final one for this is, with structures coming soon, are there any specific mechanics you're excited to see coming with them? Also, he says, can Nemean Lion buff stone,
the
please?
Stone. We could take a look at making the Nemean Lion buff the stone. We did that in playtest, and it was very strong, and it was also very annoying. Basically, what that says is if I don't have a silence, Norse Agro can't win. So it's not something that, especially when we think about the previous statement that I just had, it's not something that I would like to do, but we can give it another playtest, and I can report back on it.
Final question from him. Will there be any automated constructed or Thunderdome tournaments integrated?
Automated constructed.
Is that built in the client, I'm assuming?
Oh, okay. Well, I'm not going to spoil anything here, but tiptoeing the lines of spoils, you could, in theory, expect to see a potential tournament queue.
In theory, potential.
Down the road.
Not currently.
Maybe next patch, maybe a couple after that. Not sure. But you could look to see it, and it has different requirements maybe that are set by us. But we don't know.
Of course, we're not spoiling anything.
No. Completely not.
That's going to be it for Beal's questions. Next up, we got Cookie. You have tested the waters of 1 health units now.
I read this question.
That are not tokens. Decrepit is counted as tokens. A Wheelix, Startups, Nemean Lion. None of those cards have really taken place in any other deck other than meme decks. Do you recognize that you have painted yourself into a corner when it comes to 1 health units, and that we should stop doing 1 health units, basically? Do you think there's room for design that can make them valid?
Well, I think obviously the stealth on Startups there was a couple interesting decks that we saw. Granted, it was a meme deck with the Tenacities played and then the Discord, and it was an OTK. But I think a Wheelix kind of painted a different picture for us where we looked at it and we said, okay, well, this passive, she's guaranteed to survive at least one attack.
Which
right?
at least soaks up something.
Which soaks up at least one source, depending on how you do it and depending on who you're playing against. And overall, I think I'm pretty satisfied with the Wheelix. I think the part that kind of changes it for us is the ranged versus melee dynamic. And you know, if there is 2 ranged units on the board, a Wheelix is basically rendered useless, right? So I think there's space to kind of do lower health. Like if you look at Fan Wei, right? Fan Wei is a card that, yeah, it's 2 health, but it's the same kind of thing. You're still going to be able to kill it with anything that's under 2 mana.
Yeah.
So as long as you can get to him. But I think it's more of a matter of ranged versus melee. And we might look at making some changes to a Wheelix. Personally, I'm kind of happy with where she's at. I think she feels pretty good to still play.
With a recent buff, yeah.
Yeah, once she has 3 attack, I think people are going to experience that more because that's coming out in this patch. But
yeah, that question might have been asked before.
Yeah, it probably was.
Buff.
But I think it's kind of like I want to try to do a couple more as ranged units just to see how they feel and how they impact. And then there's also other ways of doing it, right? Like you can say there is a 1 health unit that has a war cry that does a thing, or an afterlife, or a persistent buff, any of those kinds of things that makes it worthwhile to play it. Right now, the ones that we've kind of put in there, you know, with the exception of Tomb Warden, which will see a resurgence, I hope, based on our internal testings.
I've been running Tomb Warden.
Well, Runestone of Ire makes him insane
Oh, yeah.
because it's guaranteed damage, damn near close to it, and it's on curve, which is even crazier. So I think there's room for it. I think we just have to kind of get creative. But in the sense of war cries, afterlives, or anything that's a persistent or buffing a unit, I think there's still space for it.
Okay. Expanded. I feel like many more units with lower health were valid when Bologna had a +2 ability, +2 health ability. Venator were all over the place then. Anything to consider?
Yes, we actually have a structure inside of the Hindu Pantheon that gives all units that you deploy +0, +2 permanently.
Also,
so yes.
To be in the future. Also, what are your views on healthy aggro now that Token Norse is smashed to the ground by all the AoEs around? And this is interesting, right? Because there was a question last week about wanting more board clears and more AoEs.
Yeah. So one, well, you guys know kind of my stance on where I sit with clears versus no clears and all of the different things inside of there. So for us, what we want to see with Norse Agro is we want to see them be able to successfully end the game between rounds 6 and 8. If they are able to end the game within that window, they're in a great spot. If they're ending it at turn 5 or turn 4, and we're not talking about the nuts draw here. We're not talking like you get dual Hunter Sigils and 2 Warrior Sigils, and then you play a
Siege or something.
A mercenary, and then you follow it up with a Siege, right? We're not talking about the dream case scenario because that's not fair to compare it that way. You would have to compare that versus the other dream scenario, which would be I'm going against Chinese and they have 2 Rushing Thunders and I die.
Yeah.
Right? So
it's over.
When you compare dreams to dreams, it doesn't really work out. But as long as they're able to end the game between 6 and 8, they are in a very good spot, in our personal opinion.
Okay. And the final question from him is, can we get some grass back on the Greek map?
Probably not, no. We actually see... we've noticed that a lot of players actually get the board space mixed up with the not board space, unless it's all neutral colors.
Because it kind of...
That is why you have seen the changes to the Chinese map, as well as all the other maps where they have a very dull and simple base color on the play field. Because it differentiates between the environment around it. So... you will probably not see any grass anytime soon.
Illy asks, mobile spawn points alongside either defaulted obstacles or player-made obstacles were the 2 things that really made Hand of the Gods unique in the alpha. I know the last Q&A you answered more obstacles in the book. What about mobile spawn points?
Yeah, we could totally do mobile spawn points. I think that's something to consider. The one thing that's a little bit interesting when you think about that, though, is how much worth are you getting from placing that structure? And if it's something that you would include inside of your deck.
Yeah, because Inyo deploys a flag, and you're getting a 4/5 body.
Inyo does not, you're getting a 4/5 body, you're getting an aura that gives +1 to all adjacents around them in a Pantheon that those cards are most likely to stick. So the question is would you include a structure that just deployed your units?
What if it wasn't a structure? What if it was like a carrier behemoth?
It could.
Right, like that style of thing, where it's just deploying it from another unit.
We could do something like that. I think one of the more interesting things, in my personal opinion, is throwing more of global deploys or side of board deploys on different units to kind of change everything up dynamically. I think that's a little bit more appealing because there's a lot of the structures, even inside of Hindu right now, we've gone through so many different iterations, and we found that even ones that seem like they're strong on paper, you just can't include, right? We got 25 cards inside of there, right? And if you're using two of them up just to have a better chance to deploy units around there, it doesn't really end up that great.
Yep.
So more global deploys on units or side deploys, but not any structures anytime soon.
Side note, by the way, we are going to reveal Kali at the end of the stream.
Oh, sweet.
So 350 because Scott's got to leave early. Next up is Federation. Are there any plans to add leader ability modifiers like Empower Dead and Poseidon, but for other Pantheons?
Absolutely, 150%. I also am thinking about, I really want to try to incorporate somehow like an ultimate ability on side of each of them. I haven't figured out how to do it yet.
It's like a 10 mana ability.
Something. I don't know. I think it would just be sweet.
Just like Ragnarok in the game ability.
Yeah, just something, like just seeing like Raw actually doing like a searing pain from Smite from there, right?
Like it come from his
it comes
body?
from the leaders.
Oh, you've already sold me. I don't even care what it is.
I just don't know how to do it yet.
Oh, hell yeah. Rab asks, thoughts on hosting a tournament where the winners get a gold deck / Pantheon of his choosing. Now, you're not going to get a gold deck or Pantheon, but gold card, maybe that could be.
He's got dreams.
He's got a lot of dreams. He's got a lot of dreams.
But yeah, we can look at doing some stuff with around gold card specifics or like a gold pack that you could open. We can look into that.
Okay. Next up is Jake in the Slow Zone. Can we have or expect a background sound option at all? Will it be neat to hear in-game sounds while doing something else?
So this is an option that we've added into the current patch that's going out now. It's in what patch is it? 0.28? Yeah. 0.28, there's a checkbox inside the options to where you can click this and then you'll, be able to hear sound even when you're alt-tabbed. In addition to that, I'm 87% sure.
87.
That we have the your match has started notification if you are alt-tabbed.
For
that
this,
will alert you.
Patch?
I think so.
87%.
87%. I'm waiting on
we'll let you know.
Red to actually test it and give me the go-ahead on yes or no. Corin was like, I'm pretty sure we got it in there. So
Corin was like, I guess about 73%.
So, which makes me 87 on default. So, yeah, we'll take a look at that, but Adanas can kind of tweet that out.
Dark Bob asks, why can we only buy one card pack at a time for favor? That is something that we definitely do want to get in, I think.
Oh, absolutely.
Buying multiple packs.
That's just been something that hasn't been in there. We're actually working on a store redesign as well to accommodate a lot of the future things that we are going to be selling inside of the game. So, we can add that in that list as well.
Are you guys thinking of adding an auto mute option where all your games the enemy is muted by default?
Nope.
Okay. What will you guys do with the non-leader god skins? I know for some you can make them into different gods, but I mean about the summer skins, Christmas skins.
A lot of that is kind of TBD. I would answer it, but right now it's a little fuzzy as to what we are going to be doing. We're still in different talks with it. Personally, I have my own opinion, but everyone has varying ones. Kind of like the leading idea is that there's, maybe some promotional skins that we do for holidays.
Okay. I thought I heard some audio from something. Let me know in chat if you guys heard anything. Mr. C4's got a few questions. Can we get a pause button for custom games?
Oh, that totally makes sense. Yeah, I can take a look as to see how much work is required for that, but that's something we totally didn't even think twice about. Blame Adanas for that one.
Come on, man. Are there any other archetypes on the radar? We've got beasts and maybe the start of an undead, but with the behemoths. And you said you wanted cyclopses. We could maybe do giants as well.
We could look at doing giants. I think undead is something that is actually kind of interesting, just because technically speaking, cursed hunters and cursed warriors are dead. They are the cursed versions of Vikings who died without a weapon in their hand.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's what they were based off of. So. We could look at doing something with undead. I think that would be kind of sweet. But for the most part, I think giants is something that would be pretty sweet. And yeah, we got stuff down the line. Right now, we're kind of focusing on Hindu with structures as well as a brand new passive called Reincarnate. So after we get through that, we'll probably start thinking of more.
Okay. Praise the Six asks, so Sagittarius and Hive have a pretty bad interaction.
Well.
Summoning a Hive around your stone doesn't really feel good. Basically, it's I play Sagittarius and then Hive comes out and it's near my stone. Do we think it should be removed from the pool?
So one, you have a 1 in 47 chance of getting Hive.
You're pretty unlucky when you get Hive.
1, you're pretty lucky, but 2, you're playing a card that's inherently RNG, and the RNG doesn't favor you, right? So you're always going to remember the time that you get the Hive, and you're not going to remember the time that you get everything else that you actually wanted inside of that scenario, right? It's the same kind of scenario when you're driving to school or you're driving to work and you hit a red light and you're like, man, I always hit the red lights, but you never account for all of the other times that you actually go through it, or you get through the yellow, or when you get to it, it goes from a red to a green, right? You're always going to remember the worst possible scenario, not all the best ones. You have a 1 in 47 chance, and we're going to be adding more 2 and 3 drops that all are included inside of there, so it's only going to add to it. So I think right now that's a desired interaction. I don't think that'll change anytime soon.
I think I've only pulled that once.
I've yet to pull it.
And it was like, I was just like, Scott, this is BS. And I think you said the exact same thing you just said. I was like, yeah, that's fair.
Yep. A quarter of the time I get Scylla. So I'm like...
Okay. Leonis asks, he's also one of the casters for the weeklies, by the way.
Yeah, I use his deck.
Okay. When will the other card backs become available? I really want the scrap note one. Yeah, we kind of just like, they're kind of just there now.
They are in there. We are waiting to use them when the time is right, my friend.
Time is right. That is a tech question.
I do not know how to answer it.
We will not be able to answer that, but I will look into it for you.
Yeah.
Boldest asks, I have a big problem with game. Doesn't play sound or something. Okay, yeah. So we've already answered that.
Yep.
Twisted. Oh, another question from Twisted. I'm assuming you can't exactly tell us, but could you give us a brief overview of how XP is gained in a game? I don't, that's not something I think.
Regardless,
we would share.
So Twisted, I would share with you at least the base formula for experience, but the problem is that I'm in the process of reworking it because I'm not really a humongous fan of how it is based on recent calculations and what we're seeing from just player behavior as a whole, and especially with match length. So it's something that I am going to be reworking, but even still at that point, we probably won't share it. But I can give you a little bit of insight at it once I figure out the desired formula.
Okay. Can't see new cards after opening. I'm not exactly sure.
Oh, no. So Like a Wolf says, so one, I highlighted this because I wasn't sure the first part is. But basically, he's asking, or he says that we can't see new cards after you've opened up a pack because we don't put the notification inside of the collection screen that it's a new card. So they actually can't, they don't know where it's new. Yeah, that's something that we totally need to add. 100%.
Jada B asks, is there a projected launch date? Obviously.
No. Someone knows it, maybe.
Possibly.
I don't.
Fat Drunk Man asks,
That's a good name.
Are you guys thinking of adding an incentive to end your turn earlier? Because it annoys me with a lot of people leave the game to auto-end it. Maybe make the game auto-end it earlier because it wastes a lot of time.
Well, one, we have the AFK timer, right?
Yeah.
But two, in the sense of competitive play, there actually is a decent amount of strategy behind actually roping your opponent the entire time to make them frustrated so they want to act faster.
Or not even that, just like taking the time to think out your move.
Yeah.
Or even if after you've made your move, thinking out what potential options do you have for the next turn without seeing your next card.
That's actually the majority of times that I lose is because I just want to play the things fast. I've already made up my decision, right? Before my turn comes and then I get a card, I'm like, I'm still going to do the thing, right? At least when I'm just like AFKing inside a casual and I'm just listening to Netflix, right? In ranked, I try to always use my full time, but yeah, it's the more time you use, the better.
Okay. This one, how does matchmaking work?
That's gonna depend on the queue, and it's also there's a lot to it. What we can do is we can kind of work up a blog post that kind of walks you through the different ways that our matchmaking works because it is different than Smite and other high-res games. So we can kind of do like a quick fact on it so you guys can kind of read it.
That's me, isn't it?
Probably, yeah.
That's me. Imfam asks, are there any plans to change the MMR system in ranked? If yes, what are those plans?
Yes, there is. In the future, we are looking at how the MMR system works and ranked in the future. So specifically, after you get to rank 1, we show your MMR. Now, before at the early stages of ranked, we had the same kind of situation where we only showed your MMR. And when you do that, the game's calculation, since there is no like max that you can lose, right? There's technically a max, but when you kind of swing up and down, like if you are 1800 and you lose to 1500, you are going to come down, right? That's just ELO inside of chess. That's just how it works. Now, there's different ways that we can put caps on this where there's a maximum loss, but personally, I kind of want to redesign the system after you get to 1, and then either we show your place inside of current active players or something along those lines where you basically can climb and there's just one number that shows your actual ranking. Okay. Right? But there's a couple of different ways that we can do it. We might also just add some different things like godlike or something like that to just progress inside of there. That gives you more things
just
to
there's
strive
like
for.
a ladder inside.
Yeah, it's a ladder inside of the top rank.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's it for the Discord questions. Actually, let me see. Do you have any plans to? I'm just checking the Discord now. Do you have any plans to add unique models, colors, / bling to cards played by the gold cards instead of just their highlight showing the card being golden?
We went back and forth on this. I think in the future you'll probably see different versions of models, not specifically for gold cards, but for other ones that feel really good, but there's no plans in changing the gold cards.
Yeah, Like a Wolf asks a very similar question, and then Murder Your Ego asks, can the Crystal Towers have their own look for each Pantheon?
I could get behind the own look for each Pantheon for sure. The only thing that gets a little bit weird there is that, when you're teaching players that, hey, you always attack the summoning stone, if it changes, you might actually get a little bit of confusion inside of there, so we would probably not do that, but we could do something where there's like a rune spinning inside the middle of it or something to that extent, or maybe there's some Pantheon
like
flair.
Pantheon
maybe the
banner
or
like
the pedestal
on the
just
pedestal,
changes. Yeah, we can look at doing some stuff like that.
All right, I'm going to take some questions in chat now. We're going to have to cut this one short at 3:50 instead of 4 o'clock, so we still got about 15 minutes.
Yes.
Do you just want to show Kali now? Maybe they'll have questions around that.
Absolutely.
All right, so we're going to show Kali now, guys. Get excited. One of the gods coming in the Hindu Pantheon. We can totally talk over this too.
Oh, cool. Is this full model or is this grayscale? Nice.
This is grayscale. This
Nice.
is the development of it. So Kali is
Now do
going.
you sack her?
Yeah, I kill her and then I.
It's funny.
I fade the video.
With the gray model, I always look at it. I'm like Medusa Stone.
Yeah, so Kali's gonna come out, Warcry execute a unit, but she only has a 2/2 stat line for 5 mana, and then when she comes back, she's gonna do the same thing for 5 mana. Although I think that's the numbers aren't. I'm saying that right now. Numbers are not final. Let me clarify that. Don't take any numbers you see from anything Hindu related as final until we say them on patch notes, and then maybe they'll still change.
So yeah, Kali will be one of the legendaries inside the Hindu Pantheon. When I was doing all of my research for the Hindu Pantheon, Kali is one of the destroyers, right? Mm-hmm. She's just a beast. So one of the things that I really wanted to do for a long time was do some sort of a conditional removal, whether it was health-based or mana-based or attack-based. And for Kali, it made a lot of sense, especially inside of a Pantheon that's very heavily controlled, that we put this on her, where it's a war cry, you remove a unit as long as you can do it. Now, they have some other cards inside of there. Well, you can't really, she's going to be strong, right? But they have some other cards inside of there where you can actually buff an enemy to get them up to the 4 health threshold, and then you can execute them anyway. So we actually are going to our card Flourish can actually be used on enemies, and it's specifically for this reason and other interactions.
Okay, awesome. So we're going to take some questions from chat now while we close this out. Is there a plan to work on a reconnect option?
Yes. But I don't know when. But there's a plan.
We don't ever publicize any game data stats like that. Live on.
Nope.
That's just a game industry policy. Mm-hmm. That's not even high-res specific.
Yeah.
Is there any chance of an ETA on rank changes?
Well, I think we'll probably look at fall, like maybe in the middle of fall, but first we're probably going to reset ranked before we do that. So we'll probably look to reset ranked, After I figure out the reward structure, then we would then get into that cycle of resetting ranks, and then we would probably look to make some changes.
Okay. Blueberry Stitch asks, and I think that's Cookie. I think he has a really weird Twitch name. Didn't you say that Reincarnate overrides the old effect? This seems like you got the execute both times. No, we did not say that. So
we have
do you want to just explain how Reincarnate works?
Yeah, so how Reincarnate works, do you have Robin on here by chance? We showed Robin, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if I have any images. Just you explain it, and I'll try and find
how
something.
Reincarnate works is this is a passive that gets applied to units that says when this unit would go to the graveyard, return it to your hand, it loses Reincarnate. So it doesn't lose everything. It only loses that Reincarnate keyword, and that is it. So in the sake of Robin does currently right now does not take return damage. He gets immune enemy spells on the Reincarnate, and then he has Protect 1. So when you look at Kali here, she gets this Warcry because she gets it added back to her hand. So her Reincarnate, that Warcry stays. Everything after the Reincarnate is purely additive.
I'm just going to play the video again. I don't know how. For some reason, there's no pause button on
That's
Windows
good.
10 default movie player. Use DLC Kit. Yeah, so I can't pause it, but you can see when we hover over Kali, it shows both of them. It shows the first level and then the second level of it.
Yep. So after it gets added back to your hand, then it has an updated description that lets you know exactly what it's going to do.
So Kali right there just says Warcry. You can see the Reincarnate is now off.
The Reincarnate is removed, and then she still has her same Warcry, so it's always additive.
Okay. A-Wall, I can't really read your name. I saw there used to be campaigns. Do you plan a return for them? Or is there any ETA?
Austin's working on some stuff right now, actually, specifically for that. So it's 100% on our agenda. When we're going to get to it is mostly to be determined, but yes, it's something that I think is awesome.
There's a bug where you progress 4 quests at once with 1 win. When you click continue, you have to restart the game. I think
that got fixed.
That got fixed this patch. I'll go confirm for you. Check through the bug report on Discord, that kind of chat channel, and if someone here can drop the link in chat as well to Discord, come and join and talk to the community. You can go through there and see if that's been reported already or not. How can we help you more as players? Anything we can do other than just give you feedback?
Honestly,
really broad question. I mean, so I'm always a fan of anyone who wants to from my job, right? Like anyone who wants to make content, do anything. That's always amazing to see. I know we got a couple people like Deathwalker, Super XJJ already making YouTube videos.
I think, obviously referring friends to the game is always something that's going to be much appreciated for us. And in addition to that, you get to take advantage of the refer a friend system right now, which is insanely generous in my personal opinion. But yeah, I think the big thing for me is, there's random times that I hop into the Discord and I just throw in questions. So last night I was asking about what people's favorite community-driven tournament was, whether it was like no dupes or budget, whatever it is. So getting any of that feedback from you guys when I hop in is probably the best way that you can help me, because normally I'm just kind of looking for a gauge from players.
Okay. Yeah, and Pixley there in chat says he fixed that issue with the 4 quest thing. So we're good. Don't worry. It's going to be coming this patch. Question, will there be more Roman, Greek twin gods like Inyo and Venus that might get some skins for their counterparts?
I hope so. I want Neptune real bad.
Ooh.
But I don't know if I'm getting
Neptune.
I want Neptune really bad.
Are you guys happy about the current status of Thunderdome or some changes in the future?
Win percentage-wise, yeah, I'm very happy with how Thunderdome has turned out. So I think, obviously, the elephant in the room that everyone talks about is that after 7 wins, it's not really worth it, and it's better for you to retire your deck. I think that's something that we're going to look to address probably in the next patch, as long as I can find a way to do it that feels compelling and good. But other than that, yeah, I think we're all very happy with how Arena's turned out.
Okay. Talking about the we're not going to talk about numbers. What are your plans with Bologna's ability on structures? Because I can imagine issues with Hindu pillars being moved to spawn points.
Bologna's ability should work on structures. That's how it works.
That's just how it's gonna work.
Yeah, you can totally do that. If it's a Bologna versus Hindu matchup, yeah. That's that.
There you go.
You gotta play around it.
Okay. Hi, how are you? I'm doing great. Like Wolf again asks, Agni, my first character
It's
I
not
started.
a question.
Oh, okay. I'm trying to read through.
Will we see an Ascension-like effect for silences? We could. I want a global stun before I want a global silence, though. Global silence sounds so not fun. Right?
No.
Global silence sounds really,
No.
really punishing.
The
But
only
maybe.
time I would want global silence is if I'm playing Mayan. And it's totally not a balanced card. I just want to silence all my units and then buff them. +3/+3. Got a bunch of
So they
zombies
can
that
move to 3? Yeah.
I have a question about Mac. Is it going to be on Mac soon?
Dude, I send a question every other week about Mac. I personally have a MacBook. I think it's the greatest thing ever. I will go on the record for that, saying that it is so much better than any PC laptop that there is. It just works. It's fluid, and I can also send text messages from it. It's adorable. So yeah, I would love it, because then I can sit on the couch, hang out with Reagan, and as she's watching The Crown or wherever the hell she watches these days, I can be playing Tactics instead of me being bored watching what she's watching. So yeah.
Oh, that's good to hear. Question, could you buff Loki?
Here's what I need to know, Blueberry. What do you want me to buff Loki to?
Give him suggestions. What's up with a creature that can either be targeted by enemy or friendly skills, so I can Ascension a board and still have a unit? Well, I mean, even if it can't be targeted by enemy or friendly skills,
No,
still...
he meant spells, I think.
But spells, it can't be targeted, but it's not immune spells. That's different.
It would have to be immune spells.
Yes.
Specifically, and then yes, Ascension wouldn't hit it. Meh.
Bunch of troll questions. We haven't seen a BDK buff in a while. What's on the radar for our hero?
I think Boardman King is solid.
That card went through so many changes.
I think Bull Demon King's in a great spot. Runestone of Ire brings him back into the meta just a little bit.
I think so.
I think the same thing that we see with a couple other cards is Bull Demon King. If you are behind in the board state, he is a little bit more difficult to play, unless you are going to commit a resource like Charge to him. So when you have something like Runestone of Ire that you can just kind of play and it buffs everything by giving it Charge, I think you're going to see him a little bit more.
It's going to be interesting, actually, with that card, just because I think people are going to be playing around Norse a little bit different. Like, if BDK especially comes into the meta again, which I think there's a decent chance in like a mid-range deck.
There's a lot of threats immediately that you have to deal with that you're not used to, right? Like, Soul instantly becomes a card that now, I can't really deal with it because it's guaranteed to kind of come onto the board. If Runestone's on, that it comes out, and he's getting worth from it, right? So anything with Cleave is going to be very, very strong with it. I think Ascensus is another card that actually kind of worked out pretty nice with it. I'm pretty happy with him. So, yeah. Okay.
Is it random how many legendaries you get in the arena? It's just a base percentage chance. There's no guarantee, right? Yeah. So if you get 10 legendaries, you are very lucky. Go buy a lottery ticket.
Yeah, absolutely. In theory, you could have a full deck of legendaries. I don't think that deck would be good.
How about a hotkey for end turn?
Hotkey for end turn?
Press the button.
I mean, yeah, press the button, but, you can also play with the controller, and you can use right trigger.
Immune spells is not good. Okay. Will immune spells ever be immune to your own spells as well?
If it says immune spells, yes, but if it says immune enemy spells, no. Immune enemy spells means that it's only enemies.
Question, has Smite community skins and such, how much will the community be involved in making cosmetics?
For us? I don't know. That's a very interesting question.
Smite, yeah, like, right now we're still working off of Smite assets, a lot of it. Like,
I mean, I think if you guys wanted to come up with, like, unique card art that is for any of the cards that we have temp art for, that'd be cool for us to look at. I'm not sure kind of what the legal restraints are in using art from people or if it's inspired by. I have no idea about that. That's completely out of my territory, but you know, if you guys wanted to make card art for,
I know a
any
little
of it,
bit,
let's
but
do
I
it.
don't want to say anything because I'm not confident in what I know. How do you view the power levels and complexity of legendaries? Should they just have extra stats like Anubis or require more setup like Mercury?
Every legendary is different, and it's all, a lot of it comes down to the mana cost that it's in and also what it's going to bring to the table. So a lot of it, when we kind of look at these legendaries, we say, okay, what are we doing with, what's the legendary do? And then we go, okay, for that effect, when would it be best to have this effect inside of the game? Is it early? Is it mid? Is it late game? Is it super late game, right? And whatever it is. And then from there, we make sure that it kind of fits inside of there. But yeah, traditionally, they do end up being a little bit overstated just because you can only have one of them.
Immune to Warcry, question mark. I think he's like, can we do an immune to
Oh,
Warcry?
like immune to...
I mean, we have Onhurt, who's the only anti-Warcry right now.
Yeah. No, I think specifically he's saying, like, can we have something that's immune Anubis and, like, immune...
No, he means like an actual tag.
We can totally do something like that.
Any UI changes in the works?
Yeah, so we got store. We're working on the changes to the combat log.
Yep.
And some more things along the lines. There's always...
Is combat log next patch, or is that a little bit further back?
I'm thinking 0.30.
Okay, so soonish.
Yeah.
Would you consider some type of trap effect you can place on tiles?
Maybe. The problem is if we do trap effect cards like that, you have to allow the player to actually choose their pathing of a unit.
Yeah.
Right? So, and that would be a massive arc for us to get the movement in. It's a great idea, but we would have to tackle that arc first.
Yeah, that's way messier than it would seem to be, I think.
Got time for like 2 more.
Yeah, we got just like a few more minutes, guys. 2 minutes. Will there ever be a god in Hand of the Gods that is not in
Yeah, there already is. Venus.
There we go. Will cards like Hebo ever work on your own for some cool Warcry abuse?
Hebo specifically, no, but yeah, we've looked at a couple cards that we have planned out.
Did Hebo do that internally at one point? Okay, I'm crazy.
Now, we always allowed it to be bouncing enemies. And plus, there's not a whole lot of units inside of the Chinese Pantheon that would actually really benefit from being bounced back to hand anyways. But yeah, we're looking at things that only specifically target your own.
Feaster, we've kind of already answered questions around that, so I just want to get to something else. Will you in the future be able to see the card that becomes burn? I know you said run, but yeah, for overdraw, yeah.
This is on the list. I believe it's sometime in September. Hopefully it's treated as a birthday gift to me because it's something that I think is very beneficial to have. It's also going to be included inside of the massive arc of combat log.
Okay. Can we get a card like Sagittarius but discovers instead?
Sure. Why not?
That sounds like a mechanic that we'll probably
down the road
explore
for sure.
at one time.
Yeah.
All right, you done? Do you have any blah blah blah? Doesn't seem like anything crazy. Yeah. So that's gonna be it for Scott. I'll sit around and talk to you guys for 5 minutes if you want, or I'll just leave.
Love you guys. Thank you, Adanas.
No problem. Thank God he's finally gone, guys. All right, now we can talk shit. No, thank you guys for joining us for the Dev Q&A. We're going to be doing these bi-weekly, so not next Friday, but the Friday after. Right now, I think stylistically we want to do them after patch notes, just because that will kind of introduce a few new things that people can ask questions about. Make sure to join the Discord if someone could drop that link in chat, although Moobot might ban links. We might have a few mods in here. It doesn't look like we do. We'll have to get like Twisted mod on this channel. I thought he already had it. And actually, Beals should have mod too. Anyway, guys, thank you guys for joining us, and we will see you on the next Dev Q&A.